What if the woman everyone mocked was carrying a secret that could destroy a billionaire's past? Are you even capable of doing your job properly? The man snapped, slamming his glass onto the table. Or are you just here to beg for tips? The entire restaurant went silent. Olivia Bennet stood there, one hand trembling slightly as she held her tray, the other instinctively resting on her pregnant belly. "I'm sorry, sir," she whispered. A few customers chuckled. "Pathetic," someone muttered. But in the far corner of the room, a man slowly lowered his head. His fingers tightened around his glass, because he recognized her, not as a waitress, not as a stranger, but as the woman he once loved and lost. Adrian Al-Farid, billionaire, CEO, a man who owned half the city, and the father of the child she was carrying, though he didn't know it yet. The air felt heavier, because nothing in that room was what it seemed. Before we go on, tell me where you're watching from and what time it is right now. And don't forget to subscribe, because this story might change the way you see people forever. Adrian Al-Farid had built a life that most people could only dream of, and yet, it was a life that rarely allowed him to sleep peacefully at night. From the outside, he was everything the world admired: a billionaire before the age of 40, the CEO of a global investment empire, a man whose name carried weight in boardrooms from New York to Dubai. His penthouse overlooked the Manhattan skyline, wrapped in glass and steel, filled with silence and perfection. Every detail was curated: Italian marble floors, rare artwork, custom-designed furniture shipped from Europe. But none of it felt like home. Not anymore. Because years ago, Adrian had lost the only person who ever made that cold, perfect world feel alive: Olivia Bennet. There was a time when her laughter echoed through rooms far grander than the restaurant she now worked in. A time when she wasn't carrying trays for strangers, but holding Adrian's hand as they built a future together, one filled with promise, trust, and something far more valuable than money: love. They hadn't come from the same world. Adrian had been born into wealth, raised in a family where power and reputation mattered more than emotions. His father had taught him early that trust was dangerous and that vulnerability was a weakness no man could afford. Olivia, on the other hand, had grown up in a small town. Her life had been simple, grounded, and full of warmth. She believed in people. She believed in honesty. She believed that love, if genuine, could survive anything. That was what drew Adrian to her. She was everything he wasn't. And for a while, that difference made them stronger. He remembered the first time they met. It wasn't at a gala or a corporate event, but in a quiet bookstore tucked between two crowded streets. Adrian had gone there seeking a moment of solitude, away from the constant pressure of his world. Olivia had been working behind the counter, recommending books to customers with a sincerity that felt almost foreign to him. She hadn't recognized him, not as a billionaire, not as a powerful man, just as another person. And for the first time in years, Adrian had felt normal. That feeling was addictive. He kept coming back. One conversation turned into many. Coffee turned into dinners. And before he realized it, Adrian Al-Farid, the man who trusted no one, had fallen completely in love. Their relationship wasn't easy. His world was demanding, unforgiving. Long hours, constant travel, endless expectations. But Olivia never complained. She waited. She supported him. She believed in him, even during moments when he doubted himself. Eventually, Adrian did something no one expected. He married her. The wedding was private, almost secretive, not because he was ashamed, but because he wanted something that belonged only to them, something untouched by the politics and pressures of his family. For a time, it worked. They built a life together, one filled with quiet mornings, late-night conversations, and shared dreams. But slowly, things began to change. Success came at a cost. Adrian's responsibilities grew heavier. His father became more involved in his decisions. His business partners demanded more control. And with that, suspicion began to creep into his mind. It started small. Missed calls, late replies, moments where Olivia seemed distant, distracted. At first, Adrian ignored it. He trusted her, or at least, he wanted to. But the world he came from had taught him something dangerous. Trust could be manipulated, and doubt, once planted, had a way of growing. Then came the moment that shattered everything. One night, Adrian returned home earlier than expected. The house was quiet. Too quiet. He walked through the hallway, his footsteps echoing against the polished floor. And then he saw it. A man's coat draped over the back of a chair. Not his. His chest tightened. His mind raced. Every lesson his father had ever taught him came rushing back. Never be the fool. Never be the last to know. Adrian didn't ask questions. He didn't wait for explanations. Instead, he walked into the living room, and what he saw there became the image that would haunt him for years. Olivia, standing close to another man. Too close. Their voices low, their expressions tense. But to Adrian, in that moment, it looked like betrayal. The world didn't slow down. It shattered. "What is this?" His voice had cut through the room like a blade. Olivia turned, her face pale. "Adrian, it's not—" But he didn't let her finish. Because in his mind, the truth was already decided. The arguments that followed were explosive, words spoken in anger, accusations thrown without proof, and Olivia, trying desperately to explain something he refused to hear. "I would never do that to you," she had said, her voice breaking. But Adrian had already closed himself off. The man she loved had disappeared, replaced by someone cold, defensive, and unwilling to believe. Within weeks, their marriage collapsed. Papers were signed. Doors were closed. And Olivia Bennett disappeared from Adrian's life as if she had never existed. He told himself it was for the best, that he had avoided being humiliated, that he had protected himself. But deep down, there was always something that didn't feel right. A silence where answers should have been. A lingering doubt he refused to confront. Years passed. Adrian buried himself in work. His empire expanded. His wealth multiplied. But the emptiness remained. And now, standing in that small, crowded restaurant, watching the woman he once loved struggle to carry a tray while people mocked her, that doubt came rushing back stronger than ever. Because Olivia Bennett didn't look like someone who had betrayed him. She looked like someone who had survived something painful, something heavy, something he might have been responsible for. And as Adrian sat there, his eyes fixed on her, one question echoed louder than anything else in his mind. What if he had been wrong all along? The restaurant was not the kind of place Adrian Al-Farid would have ever chosen in his former life. It was small, crowded, noisy, the kind of place where conversations overlapped, plates clattered, and the scent of fried food clung to the air long after you left. And yet, that night, Adrian didn't move. He sat in the corner, dressed in a simple dark jacket, blending into the background in a way he never had before. No one looked at him twice. No one recognized the man who controlled billion-dollar deals with a single phone call. For once, he was invisible. And for once, he was watching everything. His eyes followed Olivia Bennet as she moved carefully between tables, her steps slower than they should have been, her posture tense. One hand supported the tray she carried. The other rested protectively over her stomach. She was visibly pregnant now. There was no denying it. The sight alone made something twist uncomfortably inside Adrian's chest, because time didn't add up. Or maybe it did. He leaned back slightly, his fingers tapping once against the glass in front of him. Focus. Observe. Don't jump to conclusions. That had always been his strength in business. But this wasn't business. This was Olivia. "Table 7 is still waiting." A sharp voice cut through the noise. Jason Miller, the restaurant manager. Adrian had noticed him earlier, the way he walked, the way he spoke, the constant tension in his voice. A man who measured people not by who they were, but by how useful they could be. Right now, his attention was locked on Olivia. I'm on my way," Olivia replied quickly, her voice calm but strained. "You're always on your way," Jason snapped. "Maybe if you moved a little faster, we wouldn't be getting complaints." Adrian's jaw tightened. She wasn't moving slowly out of laziness. Anyone with eyes could see that. But no one said anything. Because in a place like this, people didn't defend waitresses. They judged them. Olivia nodded slightly, lowering her gaze, and continued moving. No argument. No resistance. That wasn't the Olivia Adrian remembered. The woman he had loved would have stood her ground, calmly, firmly, but with dignity. This version of her was quieter, more careful, as if she had learned that speaking up came with consequences. Adrian felt a flicker of something unfamiliar. Guilt? No. He pushed it aside. At that moment, Olivia approached a table near the center of the room. Mr. Raymond Clark sat there, dressed in an expensive suit that didn't quite match the setting. His watch alone was worth more than everything in this restaurant combined. Adrian recognized the type immediately. The kind of man who believed money gave him permission to treat others however he pleased. "You took long enough," Clark said, not even looking up as Olivia set down the plates. "I apologize for the wait, sir," she replied softly. Clark finally glanced at her. His eyes moved briefly to her stomach, then back to her face, and something about his expression changed. Disdain. "You should consider a different line of work," he said casually. "This clearly isn't for you." The table around him chuckled. Olivia didn't react. She simply nodded. "Is there anything else I can get for you?" she asked. Clark smirked. "Yeah," he said. "A server who can actually do her job." More laughter. Adrian's grip tightened around his glass. He had seen aggressive negotiations, hostile takeovers, men destroying each other over money and power. But this was different. Because Olivia wasn't fighting back. She wasn't defending herself. She was enduring it. And that made it worse. As Olivia turned to leave, one of the plates shifted slightly on the tray. It wasn't much, just a small imbalance. But in her condition, it was enough. The tray tilted, a glass slid, and before she could stop it, it shattered on the floor. The sound cut through the restaurant like a gunshot. Everything went quiet. For a moment. No one moved. Olivia froze. Her breathing quickened. "I'm so sorry," she said quickly, kneeling down despite the visible strain in her body. "I'll clean it up right away." Jason appeared almost instantly. "Unbelievable," he muttered, loud enough for everyone nearby to hear. "Do you have any idea how much that costs?" "I'll pay for it," Olivia said, her voice barely above a whisper. "With what?" Jason snapped. "Your tips?" A few people nearby laughed again. Adrian felt something shift inside him. This wasn't just uncomfortable anymore. It was wrong. Completely wrong. Still kneeling, Olivia carefully picked up the broken pieces, her movements slower now, more cautious. And then she paused. Just for a second. Her hand pressed against her stomach, a subtle movement. But Adrian noticed. His eyes narrowed. Was she in pain? No one else seemed to care. No one else even noticed. Jason crossed his arms impatiently. "Well, are you done?" he said. "I just need a moment," Olivia replied quietly. Jason scoffed. "You don't get moments here," he said. "If you can't handle the job, you know where the door is." The words hung in the air, heavy, cold, final. Olivia didn't respond. She slowly stood up, steadying herself, her face pale, but composed. Always composed. Adrian watched every second of it, every detail, every expression she tried to hide. And something inside him started to unravel. Because this wasn't the woman he thought he knew. And this situation didn't make sense. Not for someone who had once been part of his world. Not for someone who had lived in comfort, security, and privilege. Unless she had lost everything. But why? And how? And most importantly, where was the man who had replaced him? Because if Olivia had truly moved on, if she had built a life with someone else, then why was she here? Alone? Adrian leaned forward slightly, his gaze darkening as the question formed clearly in his mind. The question he couldn't ignore anymore. The question that changed everything. That child. Was it possible that it was his? The tension in the restaurant didn't fade after the glass shattered. If anything, it lingered, like a stain no one wanted to acknowledge, but everyone could see. Olivia Bennett returned to her feet slowly, her movements careful, controlled. She carried the empty tray back to the kitchen, her shoulders slightly hunched, as though trying to make herself smaller, less noticeable. It didn't work. Because people like her were always noticed, just not in the way that mattered. Adrian Al-Farid remained seated in the corner, watching everything unfold with a level of focus that bordered on obsession. In business, he had built his success on observation, reading people, identifying patterns, predicting outcomes. But nothing about this situation made sense. Olivia wasn't careless. She wasn't weak. And yet, she allowed herself to be treated as if she had no value. Why? "Hey!" Jason Miller's voice rang out again from near the counter. "Table 3 needs refills. Try not to mess that up too." A few customers nearby chuckled under their breath. Olivia didn't respond. She simply nodded once and reached for a pitcher of water. Her hands were steady again, her expression calm. But Adrian noticed the difference. There was something beneath that calm now, something strained, something she was holding back. As Olivia approached table 3, a group of well-dressed guests leaned back in their chairs, watching her with mild amusement. They weren't openly cruel like Raymond Clark, but their eyes carried the same quiet judgment. One of them, a woman in her early 40s, wearing a tailored blazer and a diamond necklace, tilted her head slightly, as Olivia poured water into her glass. "You should really be more careful," the woman said casually. "People come here to relax, not to watch accidents happen." Olivia gave a small nod. "Yes, ma'am. I understand." The woman studied her for a moment longer, her gaze drifting briefly to Olivia's stomach. A faint smile touched her lips. Not kind, not warm, judging. "You know," she added, lowering her voice just enough to sound conversational, but still audible to everyone at the table, "there are places that offer assistance for situations like yours." The implication was clear. Abortions. Whispers spread softly across the table. A few people exchanged looks. Someone let out a quiet laugh. Olivia didn't flinch. She didn't defend herself. She didn't even react. She simply finished pouring the water and stepped back. "Is there anything else I can get for you?" she asked. Her voice remained steady, unshaken. But Adrian felt something snap inside him. This wasn't just disrespect. This was humiliation. And Olivia was standing in the middle of it, alone. "No," the woman replied dismissively, waving her hand. "That will be all." Olivia nodded again and turned away. Step by step, she walked back toward the counter. Each movement precise, measured, controlled, as if she had practiced this, endured it, more times than anyone realized. Adrian leaned back in his chair, his jaw clenched tightly. He had spent years surrounded by people who respected him, feared him even. No one spoke to him that way. No one dared. And yet, here, Olivia was being treated as if she didn't matter at all, as if she were invisible, disposable. It didn't sit right. Not anymore. Across the room, Raymond Clark signaled impatiently. "Excuse me," he called out loudly. "Are we going to get any service here, or do we need to go somewhere more competent?" Jason immediately turned toward Olivia. "Didn't I tell you to check on that table?" he snapped. "I don't care what you were doing," Jason interrupted. "Go, now." Olivia didn't argue. She didn't explain. She simply turned and headed back toward Clark's table. Adrian watched her carefully. Something about the way she moved had changed again. Slower, more deliberate. And then he saw it. The slight hesitation in her step. The way her hand drifted, almost instinctively, to her stomach again. She was in pain. He was sure of it. But she kept going. Because she had no choice. At Clark's table, the man leaned back with a smirk. "Took you long enough," he said. "I was starting to think you forgot about us." "I apologize, sir," Olivia replied softly. Clark gestured toward his plate. "This is cold," he said. Olivia glanced at this dish briefly. "I can have it reheated for you right away." Clark shook his head. "No," he said. "I don't want reheated food. I want fresh food. Do I look like the kind of person who eats leftovers?" A few people nearby laughed again. Adrian's fingers tightened against the edge of the table. "It will only take a few minutes," Olivia began. "I said I don't want it," Clark snapped. "Is that hard to understand?" The restaurant fell quiet once more. Eyes turned, watching, waiting. Olivia stood there, her expression calm, but her posture tense. "Yes, sir," she said finally. "I'll have a new dish prepared." Clark leaned forward slightly, his voice dropping. "You should be grateful you even have a job," he added. "In your condition, most places wouldn't hire you." Silence. Heavy, uncomfortable. Olivia didn't respond. She simply nodded and turned away. But as she did, her foot caught slightly against the leg of a chair. It was a small stumble, barely noticeable, but enough. Her balance shifted, her body tensed, and this time, she didn't recover as easily. Adrian was already on his feet before he realized it. His chair scraped loudly against the floor, drawing attention. A few heads turned. Jason frowned from across the room, but Adrian didn't care, because in that moment, all he saw was Olivia. Her hand pressed firmly against her stomach, her face pale, her breath uneven, and for the first time since he had walked into that restaurant, he stopped observing and started moving toward her, fast, because something was wrong. And this time, he wasn't going to stay silent. Adrian closed the distance in seconds. "Careful," he said, his voice low but firm, as his hand steadied Olivia's elbow before she could fall. For a brief moment, the world around them disappeared. Olivia froze, not because of the stumble, but because of the voice. She knew it. Her breath caught, just for a fraction of a second. Then, just as quickly, she pulled her arm away. "I'm fine," she said softly, avoiding his eyes. The words were polite, distant, almost rehearsed. Adrian studied her face. She still hadn't looked at him directly. Not once. Which was strange, because if she truly didn't recognize him, she would have. Anyone would. "Are you sure?" he asked. "I said I'm fine," Olivia replied, this time a little firmer, but her hand remained pressed against her stomach, and her fingers were trembling. Adrian noticed everything. He always did. "You should sit down," he said. "I can't," she answered quickly. "I'm working." That answer alone told him more than she realized. The Olivia he remembered wouldn't have prioritized work over her health, unless she had no choice. Jason's voice cut in sharply from behind them. "What's going on here?" Adrian turned slowly. Jason approached with clear irritation, his eyes moving from Olivia to Adrian, then back again. "Is there a problem?" Jason asked, his tone laced with suspicion. "No," Olivia said quickly. "Everything's under control." "It didn't look like it," Jason replied. "Customers are watching." Adrian stepped slightly in front of Olivia. Instinct. Protective. Unplanned. "She almost fell," Adrian said calmly. "Maybe she needs a break." Jason let out a short laugh. "A break?" he repeated. "This isn't a spa." A few nearby customers smirked. Adrian didn't react. His expression remained neutral, controlled. But there was a shift in his eyes now, a coldness, the kind that usually came right before someone regretted crossing him. "If she's unwell, she shouldn't be working," Adrian continued. Jason folded his arms. "And if she doesn't work, she doesn't get paid," he shot back. "That's simple." Silence followed. Heavy, uncomfortable, because even the customers who had been laughing moments ago knew that line crossed something deeper. Olivia stepped forward slightly. "It's okay," she said quietly. "I can finish my shift." Adrian turned to her. "Why?" he asked. The question slipped out before he could stop it. Not aggressive, not accusing, just honest. And for the first time since he had spoken to her, Olivia looked at him. Really looked. Their eyes met. And in that moment, everything changed. Because there it was. recognition, gone almost as quickly as it appeared. But not fast enough. Adrian saw it. He felt it. She knew. She had known. And yet, she had pretended otherwise. Why? Olivia broke eye contact first. "I need the job," she said simply. Jason nodded, as if that settled everything. "Exactly," he added. "So unless you're planning to pay her bills, I suggest you let her do her work." Adrian didn't respond immediately, because Jason didn't know how close that statement was to the truth. Adrian could pay every bill Olivia had, without even noticing the money was gone. But that wasn't the point. The point was, why was she here at all? Olivia turned away, picking up her tray again. Her movements slower now, but steady, controlled, as if nothing had happened, as if Adrian's presence didn't affect her at all. But he knew better, because he had seen her eyes, and those eyes didn't belong to someone indifferent. They belonged to someone holding something back. As Olivia moved toward the kitchen, Adrian's gaze followed her, and then something caught his attention. A small detail, easy to miss, but impossible to ignore once seen. Her hand. Specifically, her ring finger. There, resting quietly against her skin, was a simple band. Worn, faded, not the kind of ring someone in her situation should still have. Unless it meant something. Adrian's breath slowed, his mind racing now, because he recognized that ring. He had chosen it. Years ago. On a day when everything had felt certain. When love had felt unbreakable. When Olivia Bennett had looked at him and said, "Forever." And now, she was still wearing it. Why? If she had truly moved on, if she had built a new life, if she had been with someone else, then why keep that ring? The question burned in his mind, refusing to fade. Across the room, Olivia disappeared briefly into the kitchen. Jason returned to the counter, muttering something under his breath. The restaurant noise slowly resumed, but Adrian remained still, unmoving, because something fundamental had shifted. The story he had believed for years was beginning to crack, piece by piece, memory by memory. Doubt crept in, unwelcome, relentless. He closed his eyes for a brief moment, and suddenly, he was back there. Years ago, that night, the coat, the silence, the image that had destroyed everything. Olivia standing close to another man, her voice low, urgent. "Please, you have to understand," she had been saying. But Adrian hadn't listened, because all he had seen was proximity, was secrecy, was betrayal. Or at least, what he thought was betrayal. His jaw tightened, because now, standing in this restaurant, watching the same woman endure humiliation without complaint, still wearing his ring, still alone, still carrying a child that might... No. He exhaled slowly. He needed facts, not assumptions, not emotions. Facts. Because for the first time in years, Adrian Al-Farid wasn't sure he had been right. And that uncertainty was far more dangerous than any enemy he had ever faced. As Olivia stepped back into the dining area, her expression composed once again, Adrian's gaze locked onto her. This time, with a different kind of intensity. Not judgment, not anger, but something far more unsettling. the beginning of doubt, and the realization that the truth he had accepted without question might have been a lie. The kitchen door swung open, releasing a burst of heat and noise into the dining area. Olivia stepped out carrying a fresh tray, her face composed, her movements steady, at least on the surface. To anyone else, she looked like a waitress doing her job. To Adrian, she looked like someone holding herself together by sheer will. He watched as she crossed the room, delivering plates, refilling glasses, offering polite nods and quiet apologies. No matter how people spoke to her, she responded the same way, calm, respectful, distant. It was as if she had built a wall around herself, and nothing was allowed through. Near the counter, another waitress struggled with a stack of dishes. Rebecca Collins, Adrian had heard Jason call her name earlier, was younger, nervous, and clearly overwhelmed. One of the plates slipped from her grip. She caught it just in time, but not before Jason noticed. "Seriously?" Jason snapped, striding toward her. "Do I need to babysit every single person in this place?" "I'm sorry, Rebecca stammered, her voice shaking. "You're always sorry," Jason cut in. "Sorry doesn't pay for broken dishes." Adrian shifted slightly in his seat. Same tone, same pressure, different target. Rebecca looked down, clearly embarrassed. "I'll be more careful," she said quietly. Jason shook his head. "Careful doesn't cut it. Efficient does," he replied. "If you can't keep up, I'll find someone who can." Before Rebecca could respond, Olivia stepped in. "I can take that table," she said gently, reaching for the tray in Rebecca's hands. Rebecca looked up, surprised. "You already have 3 tables," she whispered. "I'll manage," Olivia replied. Jason raised an eyebrow. "Finally, some initiative," he said. "Maybe you're not completely useless after all." Olivia didn't react to the insult. She simply took the tray and turned away. Adrian watched the exchange closely. There was something deliberate in Olivia's actions. She wasn't just helping, she was protecting. Rebecca exhaled in relief, her shoulders relaxing slightly. "Thank you," she murmured. Olivia gave her a small nod. "No problem." It was a simple moment. Quiet. Easily overlooked. But to Adrian, it revealed something important. Olivia wasn't just enduring her situation. She was still thinking about others. Still giving. Even when she had so little left. Across the room, Raymond Clark continued eating, his dissatisfaction evident in every movement. When Olivia approached again, he didn't bother hiding his irritation. "This better be fresh," he said. "It is, sir," Olivia replied. Clark took a bite, chewed, paused, then set his fork down. "It's acceptable," he said finally. "Barely." Olivia nodded. "Is there anything else I can get for you?" Clark leaned back in his chair, studying her. "Actually, yes," he said. "Bring me another drink, and this time try not to drop it." A few nearby customers laughed again. Adrian didn't. His eyes remained fixed on Olivia, waiting, watching. But once again, she didn't react. "Yes, sir," she said. She turned and walked toward the bar, step by step, measured, controlled. But halfway there, she slowed, just slightly. Her hand moved to her stomach again. This time, the movement was sharper, more urgent. Adrian leaned forward. Something was wrong. Olivia stopped near the counter, gripping its edge for support. Her breathing changed, quicker, uneven. Rebecca noticed immediately. "Olivia?" she whispered, stepping closer. Are you okay? I'm fine, Olivia said, though her voice lacked its usual steadiness. You don't look fine, Rebecca replied. You should sit down. I can't, Olivia said again. I need the shift. Rebecca hesitated. But, please, Olivia added quietly. There was something in her tone that made Rebecca stop. Not stubbornness, not pride. Something deeper. Something that sounded like necessity. Rebecca nodded reluctantly. Okay, but at least let me help, she said. Olivia shook her head. You already have enough to deal with, she replied. And then, almost without thinking, she reached into her pocket, pulled out a small folded bill, and pressed it into Rebecca's hand. Rebecca blinked. What is this? Take it, Olivia said softly. I can't. You can, Olivia interrupted. You said your rent was due this week. Rebecca's eyes widened. How did you You mentioned it yesterday, Olivia said. Rebecca looked down at the money, then back at Olivia. But you need this more than I do, she said. Olivia gave a faint smile. I'll be okay. It was a lie. They both knew it. But Olivia said it anyway, because that was who she was. Adrian felt something tighten in his chest. This wasn't the story he had believed. This wasn't the woman he thought he knew. This was someone who gave, even when she had nothing left to give. Someone who protected others, even when no one protected her. Rebecca hesitated for a moment longer, then slowly nodded. Thank you, she whispered. Olivia simply nodded back. No pride, no expectation, just quiet acceptance. And then, her hand tightened against the counter again, stronger this time. Her breath caught, and before she could hide it, a soft gasp escaped her lips. Adrian was on his feet instantly, again. This time, there was no hesitation, no second thought. He moved quickly across the room, ignoring the looks, the whispers, the confusion, because something was clearly wrong. And this time, it wasn't something he could just observe. Olivia, he said, reaching her side. She stiffened slightly at the sound of his voice. I said I'm fine, she replied, though her voice was strained. No, you're not, Adrian said firmly. Jason glanced over from across the room, his expression darkening. What now? He muttered. But Adrian didn't look at him. His focus remained entirely on Olivia. Her face was pale, her breathing uneven, and her hand still pressed tightly against her stomach. A realization hit him. Sharp, unavoidable. This wasn't just exhaustion. This wasn't just stress. Something was wrong with the pregnancy. And if he didn't act, it could get worse. Fast. Adrian's voice dropped, more serious now. You need to sit down, he said. Olivia shook her head weakly. I can finish. No, Adrian interrupted. This time there was no room for argument. Only urgency. And for the first time since he had spoken to her, Olivia hesitated, because something in his voice felt different, familiar, and impossible to ignore. For a moment, everything in the restaurant seemed to narrow into a single point. Adrian, Olivia, and the fragile space between them. You need to sit down, Adrian repeated, his voice lower now, controlled but firm. Olivia's fingers tightened against the edge of the counter. I can't, she said, her breath uneven. I still have tables. You're not finishing anything like this, Adrian interrupted. There was no anger in his tone, only certainty. And that, more than anything, unsettled her. I don't have a choice, Olivia replied, lifting her head slightly. I need this job. Before Adrian could respond, Jason Miller's voice cut through the tension. Oh, I think she has a choice, he said, walking toward them with slow, deliberate steps. She can either do her job, or she can leave. A few customers turned their heads, sensing the shift in the atmosphere. Conflict always drew attention. Adrian turned to face Jason. She's not well, he said calmly. She needs a break. Jason stopped a few feet away, crossing his arms. And who exactly are you to make that call? He asked. The question hung in the air. Adrian didn't answer immediately. Because technically, Jason was right. Here in this place, dressed the way he was no one, just another customer. And yet, the look in his eyes said otherwise. I'm someone who can see what's right in front of him, Adrian replied. Can you? Jason let out a short laugh. This isn't a charity, he said. People don't get paid for sitting around. Olivia stepped forward slightly. It's okay, she said quickly. I can handle it. Adrian turned back to her. Stop saying that, he said, his voice tightening just slightly. You're clearly not okay. Olivia's expression flickered. For a second, something broke through her calm. Frustration. Or maybe something deeper. You don't understand, she said. Then explain it, Adrian replied. Silence followed. Heavy. Because Olivia didn't answer. She couldn't. Not here. Not like this. Jason shook his head impatiently. Look, I don't have time for this, he said. If she can't work, she can leave. Simple as that. Adrian's gaze hardened. And if she leaves? He asked. What happens then? Jason shrugged. Then she finds another job, he said. Or she doesn't. Not my problem. A few people nearby shifted uncomfortably. Even for them. That sounded cold. Adrian took a step closer. Not your problem? He repeated quietly. Jason met his gaze unflinching. That's right. The tension between them was palpable now, sharp, unstable, and Olivia felt it. Please, she said softly, stepping between them. Don't do this. Adrian looked down at her. Don't do what? He asked. Make this worse, she replied. Her voice was calm, but her eyes were pleading, not for herself, for him, and that made even less sense. Jason scoffed. Smart move, he said, because if he keeps interfering, both of you can walk out that door. Adrian didn't even glance at him. His attention remained fixed on Olivia. Why are you defending him? Adrian asked quietly. Olivia hesitated. I'm not, she said. It looks like it. I'm trying to keep my job, she replied, her tone sharper now. That stopped him, because for the first time, there was anger in her voice. Not loud, not explosive, but real. You think I want this? She continued, her words coming faster now. You think I enjoy being talked to like this? Adrian didn't answer, because he didn't. I don't have the luxury of walking away, Olivia said. Some people don't get that option. Her hand pressed against her stomach again. A reminder. A reason. Adrian followed the movement with his eyes, and suddenly, everything shifted. This wasn't about pride. This wasn't about dignity. This was survival. Jason cleared his throat. Are we done here? He asked. Because customers are waiting. Adrian finally turned toward him. Give her 10 minutes, he said. Jason raised an eyebrow. Or what? The question was almost mocking, but Adrian didn't react. Not outwardly. Or you'll regret it, he said simply. The words weren't loud, they weren't dramatic, but they carried weight. The kind of weight that made people pause. Even Jason. For a brief second, uncertainty crossed his face. Then it was gone. Yeah, Jason said with a smirk. I'm not too worried about that. He turned his attention back to Olivia. You've got 5 minutes, he said. After that, I expect you back on the floor. And with that, he walked away. The tension didn't disappear. It just shifted, settled into something quieter, more dangerous. Olivia exhaled slowly, her shoulders dropping just slightly. Why did you do that? She asked without looking at Adrian. Because someone needed to, he replied. She shook her head faintly. You shouldn't have, she said. Why? He asked. Because it doesn't change anything. Adrian stepped closer. It changes this, he said. You get a moment to breathe. Olivia let out a soft, almost humorless laugh. A moment, she repeated. That's not enough. It's a start. Silence fell between them again. But this time, it felt different, less hostile, more complicated. Olivia finally turned to face him fully. And this time, she didn't look away. Her eyes searched his face, carefully, as if measuring something, as if confirming something she already suspected. You haven't changed, she said quietly. Adrian's expression tightened. Neither have you, he replied. A flicker of something passed through her eyes. Pain, quickly hidden. You don't know me anymore, she said. Then let me, Adrian answered. The words hung there, unexpected, unplanned. And for a moment, Olivia didn't respond. Because part of her wanted to believe them. And that was dangerous. Very dangerous. She stepped back instead, creating distance. I have to go, she said. Olivia, please, she interrupted. Her voice was softer now, but firmer, as if she was holding something back with everything she had. Adrian stopped, not because he wanted to, but because he saw it. The line she wasn't ready to cross. Not yet. Olivia turned and walked toward the break area, her steps slow, measured, but steady. Adrian watched her go, his mind racing. Because nothing about this felt simple anymore. Nothing about it matched the story he had believed for years, and as he stood there, surrounded by strangers who had no idea who he really was, one question echoed louder than all the others. What exactly was Olivia Bennett hiding? Adrian didn't sit back down. Not this time. He remained standing near the edge of the dining area, his eyes fixed on the hallway where Olivia had disappeared. The restaurant noise returned around him, plates clinking, voices rising and falling. But it all felt distant, muffled, like it belonged to a different world. Because something had shifted. The moment Olivia looked at him, everything he thought he knew had started to fall apart. She knew him. He was certain of it now. And yet, she had chosen silence. Why? Adrian turned slightly, his gaze sweeping across the room, calculating, analyzing. If there was one thing he had learned in his world, it was this. When answers don't come to you, you go find them. He reached into his pocket, pulling out his phone. One message. That was all it took. A name. A command. And within seconds, the quiet machinery of his empire began to move. Investigate Olivia Bennett. Current address. Employment. Medical records. Everything. He didn't hesitate. He couldn't. Because whatever was happening here was bigger than coincidence. Across the room, Jason continued managing the floor, barking orders, keeping everything moving. To anyone else, the scene had returned to normal. But Adrian knew better. Nothing about this was normal. Minutes passed. Too slow. Too quiet. And then, his phone buzzed. Adrian glanced down, his expression unreadable as he opened the message. A file. Preliminary findings. He tapped it open. The first thing that appeared was an address. A small apartment complex in a rundown part of the city. Not the kind of place Olivia should be living. Not after everything she once had. Adrian's jaw tightened. He scrolled. Employment history, short-term jobs, frequent changes, no stability, no support, no partner listed. His eyes narrowed slightly. No partner. He kept reading. Medical records. His thumb paused for just a fraction of a second before opening the file. The details loaded slowly. Routine checkups, prenatal visits, a single name listed under emergency contact. Rebecca Collins. Not a husband. Not a family member. A co-worker. Adrian felt something cold settle in his chest. She was alone. Completely alone. He exhaled slowly, steadying himself, and continued scrolling. And then, he saw it. The date. His eyes locked onto the number, rereading it once, then again. The estimated conception timeline. Adrian's mind went completely still, because it matched, perfectly, the last weeks of their marriage, the final days before everything had fallen apart, before he had walked away, before he had closed the door on her, without looking back. His grip tightened around the phone. Impossible. Or maybe not. A memory surfaced. Sharp. Uninvited. That night. The argument. Olivia standing in front of him, her eyes filled with something he had refused to see. "Please, just listen to me," she had said. "I've heard enough," he had replied coldly. "No, you haven't," she insisted. "You don't understand what you're seeing." "I understand exactly what I'm seeing," Adrian had cut in. But now, standing in this restaurant, looking at the numbers in front of him, he wasn't so sure anymore. Because if the timeline was right, if the dates aligned, then the child she was carrying could only be his. The thought hit him like a shockwave, not gradual, not uncertain, immediate, unavoidable. Adrian lowered the phone slowly, his gaze lifting back toward the hallway. Everything felt different now, sharper, more urgent. Because this wasn't just about Olivia anymore. This was about a child, his child. And suddenly, the past didn't feel distant. It felt unfinished. Across the room, Rebecca stepped out from the break area, glancing around nervously. When she noticed Adrian standing there, she hesitated. Then, after a brief pause, she walked toward him. "You're the guy from earlier, right?" she asked quietly. Adrian nodded slightly. Yes. Rebecca shifted her weight, clearly unsure. She's not doing well, she said. Adrian's expression darkened. I know. Rebecca looked back toward the hallway. She won't say it, but it's been getting worse, she continued. The doctor told her to rest, but she can't afford to. Adrian's jaw tightened again. How long? He asked. A few weeks, Rebecca replied. Maybe longer. And she's still working like this? Rebecca gave a small, helpless shrug. She doesn't have a choice, she said. If she stops working, she can't pay rent. And if she can't pay rent... She didn't finish the sentence. She didn't need to. Adrian understood. Perfectly. What about the father? He asked, his voice quieter now. Rebecca hesitated. Her eyes flickered with something. Uncertainty. Maybe caution. I don't know, she said finally. Adrian studied her. You don't know, he repeated. She never talks about him, Rebecca added. Not once. That confirmed it. Or at least, it made the possibility impossible to ignore. Adrian looked back toward the hallway again, his thoughts racing faster now, connecting pieces, rebuilding something he had once destroyed. If Olivia had been telling the truth, if he had been wrong, then everything that followed, the divorce, the years apart, the life she had been forced to live, all of it, was because of him. A wave of something unfamiliar hit him. Not anger, not frustration. Something deeper, heavier. Regret. Real. Unavoidable. Rebecca watched him carefully. You care about her, she said softly. It wasn't a question. Adrian didn't answer immediately, because the truth was complicated. But one thing was clear. Yes, he said finally. Rebecca nodded slowly. Then you should know, she said. She didn't end up like this by accident. Adrian's eyes narrowed slightly. What do you mean? Rebecca hesitated again, then shook her head. It's not my place, she said. But whatever you think you know about her, you're probably wrong. The words landed hard, because they echoed exactly what Adrian had been thinking. Rebecca stepped back. I should go, she added. Adrian nodded absently, but his focus was no longer on her. It was on the truth, or at least, the version of it he had never bothered to question. And as he stood there, staring toward the hallway where Olivia had disappeared, one realization settled firmly in his mind. This wasn't over, not even close, because the story he had believed for years was only just beginning to unravel, and whatever came next would change everything. Adrian didn't remember crossing the floor. 1 second he was standing near the counter, phone still warm in his hand, Rebecca's words echoing in his ears. And the next, he was pushing through the hallway toward the break room. The door creaked slightly as he opened it. Inside, the noise of the restaurant faded into a distant hum. Olivia sat on a narrow chair near the wall, her head tilted back, eyes closed. One hand rested on her stomach, the other pressed against her temple, as if trying to hold herself together. For a moment, Adrian didn't speak. He just stood there, watching. Taking in the reality of her, this version of Olivia Bennett, worn down but still fighting, still holding on. It didn't match the image he had carried in his mind for years. The image of betrayal, the image of deception. It didn't match at all. Olivia. Her name left his lips quietly. Her eyes opened instantly, and this time there was no pretending. She knew exactly who he was. A flicker of something passed through her gaze. Shock, pain, maybe even fear, but it disappeared just as quickly. "You shouldn't be back here," she said, her voice steady despite everything. Adrian stepped inside, closing the door behind him. "We need to talk." Olivia let out a faint breath, almost like a tired laugh. "No," she said softly. "We really don't." Adrian's expression tightened. "Yes, we do," he replied. "Because nothing about this makes sense." Olivia looked away. "That sounds like your problem," she said. The words were cold, deliberately so, but Adrian heard what was underneath. Distance. Protection. He moved closer. "Is the baby mine?" he asked. The question hit the room like a sudden storm. Silence followed. Thick. Unavoidable. Olivia's hand tightened against her stomach. Her breathing changed, just slightly, but enough for Adrian to notice. "You don't get to ask me that," she said. "I think I do," Adrian replied, his voice firm. "Not after what I just saw." Olivia's eyes snapped back to his. "What you saw," she repeated. "You mean me working? Surviving? Is that what's confusing you?" Adrian shook his head. "That's not what I meant." "Then what did you mean?" she pressed. Adrian took a breath. "The timeline," he said. "The dates. They match, Olivia." She froze. Just for a second. But it was enough. Adrian saw it. The hesitation. The crack in her composure. "The last time we were together," he continued, his voice quieter now, more controlled. "It lines up perfectly." Olivia looked down, her fingers curling slightly against her dress. "You shouldn't have looked into that," she said. "I had to," Adrian replied, "because nothing about this makes sense." Olivia let out a slow breath. "It makes perfect sense," she said. "You just don't want to accept it." "Then explain it to me," Adrian said. She shook her head. "No." "Why not?" "Because it won't change anything." Adrian stepped closer. "It changes everything," he said. "If that child is mine—" "If?" Olivia cut in sharply. The word echoed, loaded, heavy. Adrian stopped. Because this time, there was no hiding it, no denial, only truth. And it was staring him right in the face. "You should leave," Olivia said quietly. "I'm not leaving," Adrian replied. "You already did that once," she said. The words hit harder than anything else she had said, because they were true. Painfully true. Adrian's jaw tightened. "That was different," he said. "No," Olivia replied. "It wasn't." Silence fell again. But this time it wasn't just tension. It was history. Years of it, unspoken, unresolved. Adrian looked at her, really looked at her, and for the first time, he saw it. Not just the exhaustion, not just the struggle, but something deeper. Hurt. The kind that doesn't fade. The kind that changes you. "You were pregnant when I left," he said slowly. Olivia didn't respond, but her silence was answer enough. Adrian took a step back, the realization hitting him fully now. "You tried to tell me," he said. A memory surfaced, clearer now, stronger. "Adrian, please, you need to listen to me," Olivia had said that night. her voice urgent, desperate. "I don't have anything to listen to," he had replied. "Yes, you do," she insisted. "This isn't what it looks like." But he had walked away before she could finish, before she could explain, before she could tell him the truth. Adrian exhaled slowly, his hand running through his hair. "I didn't give you a chance," he said. Olivia let out a quiet laugh. "No," she said, "you didn't." The simplicity of it made it worse. No anger, no accusation, just fact. Adrian looked at her again, his voice lower now. "Who was he?" he asked. "The man I saw that night." Olivia's expression shifted. For the first time, there was something different there. Not pain, not anger, something closer to disbelief. "You really don't know?" she asked. Adrian frowned. "If I knew, I wouldn't be asking." Olivia studied him for a moment, carefully, as if trying to decide something. Then she shook her head slightly. "It doesn't matter anymore," she said. "It matters to me," Adrian replied. "It didn't matter back then," she said. "Why should it matter now?" "Because I was wrong." The words sat at the edge of Adrian's mind, unspoken, uncomfortable, but real. "Because I need to know the truth," he said instead. Olivia looked at him for a long moment. Then finally, she spoke. "He wasn't what you thought," she said. Adrian's eyes narrowed slightly. "What does that mean?" "It means you saw something," Olivia continued, her voice steady now, "and you decided what it meant without asking me." "That's not an answer," Adrian said. "It's the only one you're getting," she replied. Frustration flickered across his face, but underneath it, something else. Doubt, growing stronger, louder. Because if she wasn't lying, if that moment had been misunderstood, then everything that followed, everything he had done, was built on a lie. And as Adrian stood there, the weight of that possibility pressing down on him, one question remained. If she hadn't betrayed him, then who made him believe she did? The question didn't just linger. It echoed, louder with every passing second. If she hadn't betrayed him, then who made him believe she did? Adrian stood in the narrow break room, the air suddenly feeling too heavy to breathe. Olivia's words replayed in his mind. Calm, measured, undeniable. "You saw something, and you decided what it meant." He had. Without asking, without listening, without giving her even a chance. And now, standing here years later, facing the consequences of that decision, he realized something terrifying. He didn't actually know the truth. Not then. Not now. "Who was he?" Adrian asked again, his voice lower this time. "The man I saw that night." Olivia didn't answer immediately. Her gaze dropped to her hands, fingers loosely intertwined, resting just above her stomach. "He was someone trying to help," she said finally. Adrian's brow furrowed. "Help?" he repeated. "Yes. With what?" Olivia exhaled slowly, as if weighing every word before letting it leave her lips. "With something I didn't want you involved in," she said. That only made things worse. "Why not?" Adrian asked. "Because I knew how you would react," she replied. "That doesn't explain anything." "No," Olivia agreed. "It doesn't, but it explains why I didn't tell you." Adrian stepped closer, frustration building. "You're still not making sense," he said. "You were standing there with another man, in our house, speaking in whispers like you were hiding something. What was I supposed to think?" Olivia looked up at him, and this time, there was no softness in her eyes, only clarity. "You were supposed to trust me," she said. The words hit harder than any accusation, because they were simple and absolute. Adrian didn't respond. He couldn't, because deep down, he knew she was right. Silence stretched between them, thick, uncomfortable. Then Olivia spoke again. "His name was Ethan Cole," she said. Adrian's entire body went still. Ethan. The name wasn't unfamiliar, not even close. Ethan Cole had been more than just a business partner. He had been Adrian's closest ally, his most trusted confidant. The one person outside of family who had access to everything: his company, his plans, his personal life. "You're lying," Adrian said instinctively, but the words didn't carry conviction. They sounded hollow, even to him. Olivia shook her head. "I wish I was," she said. Adrian stared at her, his mind racing now. "That doesn't make any sense," he continued. "Ethan would never, would never what?" Olivia cut in. "Lie? Manipulate? Betray you?" Adrian clenched his jaw. "Yes." Olivia let out a quiet breath. "That's exactly what I thought too," she said. Adrian's expression shifted. "What do you mean?" Olivia hesitated. For a moment, it looked like she might stop there, like she might walk away and leave the rest unsaid. But then, she continued. "I found out something about him," she said. Adrian's pulse quickened. "What?" "He wasn't just your partner," Olivia replied. "He was working against you." The room seemed to shrink. Adrian's thoughts collided. Fragments of past conversations, missed signs, unexplained decisions, all rushing back at once. "That's not possible," he said. "It is," Olivia replied. "And I had proof." Adrian stepped back slightly, his mind struggling to catch up. "Proof?" he repeated. Olivia nodded. "I didn't know how deep it went," she said. "But I knew enough to realize that if I told you directly, you wouldn't believe me." Adrian opened his mouth to argue, then stopped, because she was right. At that time, he wouldn't have believed her. "Ethan knew that too," Olivia continued. "He knew exactly how to position everything so you would trust him and doubt me." A chill ran down Adrian's spine, because suddenly, things started to connect. The subtle suggestions, the carefully planted doubts, the way Ethan had reacted that night. "You remember what he said, don't you?" Olivia asked quietly. Adrian's eyes narrowed. "I don't—" "Yes, you do," she interrupted. And then, it came back, clearer than ever. That night, after Adrian had confronted Olivia, Ethan had stepped forward, his expression serious, concerned. "I didn't want to get involved," Ethan had said, "but I think you deserve to know the truth." The words, so calm, so convincing, and Adrian had believed every single one. "He told you I was seeing someone else," Olivia said. Adrian's silence confirmed it. "He showed you things," she continued. "Messages, photos, enough to make it look real." Adrian's hand tightened into a fist, because it was true. All of it. And you didn't question it, Olivia finished. The weight of her words pressed down on him. Unforgiving. Unavoidable. I thought, Adrian began. You thought what he wanted you to think, Olivia said. There was no anger in her tone, only truth. And that made it worse. Adrian turned away, running a hand through his hair, his thoughts spiraling. This doesn't make sense, he muttered. Why would he do that? Olivia hesitated, then answered, because he wanted everything you had, she said. Adrian froze. Your company, your influence, your position, Olivia continued. And I was in the way. The realization hit him like a blow, not physical, but just as powerful. Because if that was true, then Ethan hadn't just betrayed him. He had destroyed his life, piece by piece, and Adrian had let him. Adrian turned back to Olivia, his voice quieter now. Why didn't you fight it? He asked. Why didn't you prove him wrong? Olivia gave a faint, tired smile. I tried, she said. Adrian's chest tightened. But you had already made your decision, she continued. You didn't want the truth. The silence that followed was deafening, because there was nothing Adrian could say. No defense, no justification, only the crushing weight of realization. He had been wrong, not partially, not slightly, completely. And everything that came after was built on that mistake. Adrian looked at Olivia again, really looked at her, at the exhaustion, at the strength, at the life she had built, without him. And one final thought settled in his mind. If Ethan had been behind everything, then this wasn't just a misunderstanding. It was a calculated betrayal, one that had cost him years, cost Olivia everything, and nearly cost him his own child. The break room felt smaller now, not because the walls had moved, but because the truth had. It pressed in from every direction. Ethan's name, Olivia's quiet certainty, Adrian's own memories rearranging themselves into something unrecognizable. For years, he had built his certainty on fragments. Now those fragments were turning against him. Say it again, Adrian said, his voice low, controlled. Ethan, set this up? Olivia didn't look surprised by the question. She looked tired. I already did, she replied. That's not enough, Adrian said. I need details. Olivia exhaled slowly, her hand resting against her stomach as if grounding herself. You didn't want details back then, she said. I do now. She studied him for a moment, as if measuring whether that statement meant anything. Then she nodded, just once. Fine, she said, but don't interrupt. Adrian said nothing. Olivia leaned back slightly in the chair, her gaze drifting for a moment as she reached back into a memory she had spent years trying to bury. It started a few weeks before that night, she said. I noticed small things, documents left open, numbers that didn't match what you told me, conversations that stopped when I walked into the room. Adrian's jaw tightened. He remembered those weeks, long hours, pressure, trusting Ethan to handle details he didn't have time to verify. I didn't think much of it at first, Olivia continued. I thought it was just business. But it wasn't, Adrian said. Olivia shook her head. No, her voice was steady now, clear. Then one afternoon, Ethan came to me, she said. Alone. Adrian frowned. Why you? Because he knew I was the only person you trusted without question, she replied. And he thought he could use that. Adrian didn't like the sound of that. What did he say? Olivia's eyes hardened slightly. He said your company was in trouble, she answered. That there were deals happening behind your back. Deals that could destroy everything you'd built. Adrian's mind raced. That had never been reported. Not officially. Did he show you anything? Adrian asked. Olivia nodded. Yes, she said. Emails, financial projections, transfers that didn't make sense. Adrian's stomach tightened. Because those things sounded real. Too real. I didn't know what to believe, Olivia continued. So I asked him why he was telling me instead of you. And? Adrian pressed. He said you were too close to it, she replied. Too invested. That you wouldn't see the truth if it was right in front of you. Adrian let out a slow breath. That sounded exactly like something Ethan would say. Careful. Convincing. Manipulative. I didn't trust him, Olivia added. Not completely. Adrian looked at her. Then why meet him at the house? He asked. Olivia hesitated. Because that was the part that mattered most. The proof he showed me wasn't enough, she said. So I told him I needed more. Real evidence. And he agreed? He said he would bring it, Olivia replied. That night, Adrian felt his pulse quicken. That's when I came home, he said. Olivia nodded. Yes. Silence fell for a moment as the pieces aligned. Adrian closed his eyes briefly, remembering the coat, the voices, the tension in the room. You were arguing, he said. Yes, Olivia replied. Because the more he talked, the less it made sense. Adrian's eyes opened again. What do you mean? Olivia leaned forward slightly. Some of the details didn't match what I had already seen, she explained. So I started questioning him. And he didn't like that, Adrian said. No, Olivia replied. He didn't. Adrian could almost see it now. Ethan, cornered, losing control of the narrative. So what happened? Adrian asked. Olivia's expression shifted, not to anger, not to sadness, but to something more complicated. He changed tactics, she said. Adrian frowned. How? He made it personal, Olivia replied. He started talking about you, about your past, about your tendencies. Adrian's jaw tightened. What tendencies? Not trusting people, Olivia said. Jumping to conclusions. Protecting yourself at all costs. The words hit too close to home. And then? Adrian asked. Olivia looked at him directly. And then he told me that if you ever saw us together like that, you wouldn't ask questions. Adrian felt something cold settle in his chest. You would assume the worst, Olivia finished. Silence. Heavy. Unavoidable. Because she was right. That was exactly what he had done. He knew how you think, Olivia said. Better than anyone. Adrian's hands curled into fists. He set it up, he said quietly. Yes, Olivia replied, and I walked right into it. Olivia didn't answer. She didn't need to. Adrian turned away, pacing once across the small room. His thoughts were racing, colliding, unraveling everything he had believed. I should have listened, he said. Olivia's voice was calm. Yes. I should have asked questions. Yes. I should have trusted you. This time, Olivia didn't respond immediately, because that one was harder. Adrian stopped pacing, turning back to her. "Why didn't you come after me?" he asked. "After I left?" Olivia's expression softened slightly. "I did," she said. Adrian's breath caught. "What?" "I tried calling," she continued. "Texting. Showing up at your office." Adrian shook his head. "I never—" "Of course you didn't," Olivia said gently. "Ethan made sure of that too." The room went still. Again. "Because that meant—" "He blocked you," Adrian said. Olivia nodded. "And he told me you didn't want to see me," she added. Adrian felt the weight of it all crash down at once. Every missed call, every unanswered message, every moment he had believed she had simply moved on. All of it had been controlled, manipulated, engineered by someone he trusted more than anyone else. Adrian looked at Olivia again, really looked at her, and for the first time, he didn't see the past. He saw the present. The woman who had endured everything he had done. The woman who had carried his child, alone. "Olivia," he said quietly. She held his gaze. "Yes?" He hesitated, because the words he needed to say didn't come easily. Not to someone like him. "I was wrong," he said finally. The simplicity of it made it heavier, more real. Olivia didn't react the way he expected. No anger, no satisfaction. Just a quiet nod. "I know," she said. And somehow, that hurt more than anything else. The words hung between them longer than either expected. "I was wrong." Simple, direct, and far too late. Olivia held Adrian's gaze for a moment, then looked away, as if even acknowledging that truth required more energy than she had left. "Does it matter now?" she asked quietly. Adrian didn't hesitate. "Yes," he said. Olivia let out a soft breath, almost like a tired sigh. "It shouldn't," she replied. "Not after everything." Before Adrian could respond, the break room door swung open. Jason Miller stood in the doorway, his expression immediately tightening when he saw Adrian inside. "There you are," Jason said sharply. "I thought I told you to stay out on the floor." His eyes shifted to Olivia. "And you, your 5 minutes are up." Olivia straightened slightly, instinctively preparing to stand. "I'm coming," she said. Adrian stepped forward. "No, you're not." Jason scoffed. "Oh, here we go again," he muttered. "Look, I don't know who you think you are." "You're right," Adrian cut in. The tone in his voice changed. Subtle, but undeniable. Gone was the quiet restraint. In its place, something colder, sharper, the kind of authority that didn't need to raise its volume to be heard. Jason paused, just for a second. Adrian reached into his jacket, pulling out his phone once more. A single tap. A number already memorized. Jason crossed his arms. "You calling someone to complain?" he said with a smirk. "Go ahead. I've dealt with worse." Adrian didn't respond. He simply waited. The line connected almost instantly. "Yes, sir," a voice answered on the other end. Adrian's gaze never left Jason. "I need the owner of this restaurant on the line," he said calmly. Jason's smirk widened. "Good luck with that," he muttered. But within seconds, the tone in the room began to shift, because Adrian wasn't bluffing. The call transferred. Another voice came through, nervous, eager. "Mr. Al-Farid, is everything all right?" The name landed like a shockwave. Jason froze. Completely. His arms dropped slowly to his sides. Olivia's eyes widened, snapping toward Adrian, and for the first time, there was no hiding it, no pretending, no distance, because now everyone knew. Adrian Al-Farid, the billionaire, the CEO, the man who could shut down this entire place with a single sentence. Yes, Adrian replied into the phone, his voice calm, controlled. I'm currently at one of your locations. Of course, sir, anything you need. I do, Adrian interrupted. But first, I want you to listen carefully. Jason swallowed hard, his confidence evaporating by the second. Adrian's gaze shifted briefly toward Olivia, then back to Jason. There's a situation here, Adrian continued. One of your employees is being mistreated. The owner's tone immediately changed. I'm so sorry, sir. That is absolutely not. I'll decide what it is, Adrian said. Silence followed on the line. Yes, sir, the owner replied quickly. Adrian lowered the phone slightly, turning his full attention to Jason. You have two choices, Adrian said. Jason didn't speak. He couldn't. You can explain why you think it's acceptable to treat your staff this way, Adrian continued. Or you can start packing your things. Jason's face turned pale. I didn't know, he stammered. That's not an excuse, Adrian said. Olivia stepped forward slightly. Adrian, stop, she said quietly. But he didn't look at her. Not yet. Because this wasn't just about her anymore. This was about everything that had led to this moment. Jason looked between them, clearly panicking now. I was just doing my job, he said. Keeping things running. By humiliating your employees? Adrian asked. Jason opened his mouth, then closed it again, because there was no answer that would fix this. Adrian turned back to the phone. Handle it, he said simply. Yes, sir, the owner replied immediately. Consider it done. Adrian ended the call. The silence that followed was deafening. Jason stood there, frozen, his entire posture collapsing in on itself. I didn't mean, he started. But Adrian didn't listen. He had already moved on. His focus shifted back to Olivia, and this time, everything was different. Because now, there were no barriers left, no disguises, no misunderstandings about who he was, or what he could do. Olivia looked at him, her expression unreadable. You shouldn't have done that, she said. Adrian frowned. He deserved it. That's not the point, Olivia replied. Then what is? Adrian asked. Olivia hesitated, because the answer wasn't simple. It doesn't fix anything, she said finally. Adrian stepped closer. It's a start. Olivia shook her head faintly. No, she said. It's just another reminder of how different our worlds are. The words hit harder than he expected, because they were true, painfully true. Adrian looked at her, searching for something, understanding, maybe. I'm trying to make this right, he said. Olivia met his gaze. And how do you plan to do that? She asked. Adrian didn't answer immediately, because for once, he didn't have a clear solution, no strategy, no plan, just a problem he had created and no idea how to fix. I don't know yet, he admitted. Olivia's expression softened slightly, but only for a moment. Then maybe you should figure that out, she said. Her hand moved to her stomach again, instinctively, protectively. Adrian followed the movement with his eyes, and in that moment, everything became clear. This wasn't about power, or money, or control. This was about something far more fragile: trust. And right now, he had none of it. Olivia turned toward the door. "I need to get back," she said. "Olivia, please," she interrupted again. Her voice wasn't sharp this time, just tired. "I can't do this right now." Adrian stopped, because he saw it. The limit. The line she couldn't cross yet. And as she walked past him, leaving the room behind, one question remained in his mind. Not about the past, not about Ethan, but about the future. After everything he had done, after everything she had endured, was there still any chance that Olivia Bennett would ever trust him again? The break room door closed softly behind Olivia, but the silence it left behind was anything but gentle. Adrian stood still for a moment, staring at the empty doorway as if expecting her to return. She didn't. Instead, the sounds of the restaurant seeped back in. Murmurs, clinking dishes, distant voices trying to pretend everything was normal. Nothing was normal. Not anymore. Adrian exhaled slowly and stepped back into the hallway. The shift in atmosphere was immediate. People noticed him now. Not the man in a simple jacket, but the man whose name had just changed everything. Jason Miller was no longer standing tall behind the counter. He was hunched slightly, speaking in a low, hurried tone into his phone, his face pale and strained. Rebecca stood nearby, watching the scene unfold with wide eyes. When she saw Adrian, she hesitated, then walked toward him. "Is it true?" she asked quietly. "You're really—" "Yes," Adrian said. He didn't elaborate. He didn't need to. Rebecca nodded slowly, absorbing it. Then her gaze shifted toward the kitchen. "She's still working," she said. Adrian frowned. "What?" Rebecca lowered her voice. "She didn't go home," she explained. "She said she couldn't afford to miss the rest of the shift." Something tightened in Adrian's chest. Of course she hadn't left. Of course she had stayed. Because that was who Olivia Bennett was, even now, even after everything. "She shouldn't be here," Adrian said. Rebecca gave a small, helpless shrug. "Try telling her that," she replied. Adrian didn't hesitate. He moved, straight toward the kitchen. The door swung open again, releasing heat, noise, and the sharp scent of food. Inside, the pace was relentless. Orders shouted, pans clattering, staff moving quickly, efficiently, and in the middle of it, Olivia. She stood near the prep station, carefully plating dishes, her movements slower than before but still precise, focused, determined, as if nothing else existed. Adrian stepped closer. "Olivia." She didn't turn immediately, but he saw it. The slight pause in her hands, the brief stillness before she resumed what she was doing. "I'm working," she said without looking at him. "You shouldn't be. That's not your decision." Adrian moved around the counter, placing himself directly in her line of sight. "Look at me," he said. Olivia hesitated. Then finally, she did. Her face was pale, more than before. There was a faint sheen of sweat on her forehead, and her breathing wasn't as steady as she wanted it to be. Adrian's expression darkened. "This isn't safe," he said. "I'm fine. You keep saying that. Because it's true. It's not." The words came out sharper than he intended. Olivia flinched slightly, not from fear, but from exhaustion. "I don't have time for this," she said, reaching for another plate. Adrian caught her wrist gently, not forcefully, just enough to stop her. "You need to stop," he said. Olivia's eyes dropped to his hand, then back to his face. "Let go," she said quietly. Adrian hesitated, then released her. But he didn't step back. "I'm not leaving you here like this," he said. Olivia let out a breath, her patience clearly wearing thin. "You don't get to decide what happens to me," she said. "Not anymore." Adrian absorbed that, because again, she was right. But that didn't change what he was seeing. "What happens if something goes wrong?" he asked. Olivia's hand moved to her stomach again. A reflex, unconscious, but telling. "I won't let it," she said. "That's not how this works." "Then how does it work?" she snapped, her voice rising slightly. A few nearby staff glanced over. The tension was no longer private. "It works by taking care of yourself," Adrian replied. Olivia shook her head. "It works by paying rent," she said. "By buying food. By making sure there's a place for my child to live." The word hung there. Child. Adrian felt it settle deep inside him. "This isn't just about you," he said. "I know that," Olivia replied. "That's exactly why I can't stop." Silence followed, because for once, Adrian didn't have a counter-argument. He had solutions, money, resources, power. But none of that mattered to her. Not like this. Not yet. A voice called out from across the kitchen. "Order up!" Olivia turned instinctively, reaching for the plate. But as she did, her movement faltered, just slightly. Her hand trembled. The plate tilted. Adrian saw it happen in slow motion. He stepped forward, too late to stop the plate, but just in time to catch her. Because this time, she didn't recover. Her body went rigid for a split second, then weak, her weight shifting forward as her knees gave out beneath her. "Olivia!" Adrian's voice cut through the chaos. The kitchen fell silent. Completely. Because the waitress everyone had ignored, the woman everyone had underestimated, was collapsing right in front of them. Adrian lowered her carefully to the floor, his movements controlled but urgent. Her eyes fluttered, her breathing shallow. "Stay with me," he said, his voice tight. Rebecca rushed in from behind. "Oh my God! Olivia!" Jason appeared at the doorway, frozen. For once, he had nothing to say. Adrian looked up sharply. "Call an ambulance," he ordered. No one moved. For a second. Too shocked. Too unsure. "I said call an ambulance," Adrian repeated. This time someone reacted. Phones came out. Voices rose. Panic spread. But Adrian didn't look at any of them. His focus remained entirely on Olivia. Her hand rested weakly against her stomach. Protective. Even now. And as he held her there, surrounded by people who had once laughed, judged, ignored, one thought echoed louder than everything else. He had lost her once. He wasn't going to lose her again. Not like this. Not when the truth had finally come out. Not when everything was finally clear. Because this wasn't just about the past anymore. This was about the future. And whether or not she survived long enough to be part of it. The ambulance lights painted the night in sharp flashes of red and blue. Adrian stood just outside the hospital entrance, watching as the paramedics rushed Olivia through the sliding doors. The world around him moved fast. Voices, footsteps, instructions shouted. But inside him, everything slowed to a single, relentless thought. Don't let her slip away. He followed without waiting to be told. Inside, the sterile brightness of the emergency room felt colder than anything he had known. Nurses moved with practiced urgency. A doctor intercepted the gurney, asking rapid questions: vitals, weeks of pregnancy, symptoms. Third trimester, one of the paramedics answered. Collapse at work, possible dehydration, stress, maybe more. Adrian caught only fragments, but each word tightened the knot in his chest. Sir, you can't come past this point, a nurse said, stepping in front of him. I'm her. He stopped. What was he now? Not her husband, not the man she trusted, just the man who had left. I'm with her, he said instead, his voice low but steady. The nurse hesitated, then nodded toward the waiting area. We'll update you as soon as we know something. Adrian stepped back. For the first time in years, he felt powerless. No boardroom strategy could fix this. No deal could be negotiated. No amount of money could guarantee an outcome. Time stretched. Minutes felt like hours. Rebecca arrived shortly after, breathless, her eyes scanning the room until they landed on Adrian. Is she began. They're checking on her, Adrian said. Rebecca nodded, hugging herself tightly. She kept saying she was fine, she whispered. I should have pushed harder. Adrian shook his head. No, he said. This isn't on you. Rebecca looked at him, something softer in her expression now. She never talks about you, she said quietly. Adrian didn't answer. She doesn't talk about the past at all, Rebecca added. But I've seen her keep that ring. I've seen her hold on to things most people would have let go of. Adrian's gaze dropped briefly to the floor. I didn't deserve that, he said. Rebecca didn't argue, because she didn't need to. A doctor finally stepped out. Are you family? She asked. Adrian stepped forward. Yes, he said. It wasn't entirely true, but it wasn't entirely false either. The doctor studied him for a moment, then nodded. She's stable, she said. Severe exhaustion, dehydration, and stress. The baby is still okay, but she needs rest. Real rest. Adrian exhaled, a tension he hadn't realized he was holding finally releasing. Can I see her? He asked. For a few minutes, the doctor replied. She needs to sleep. Adrian nodded. Thank you. The room was quiet when he entered. Olivia lay on the bed, pale but breathing steadily, an IV line running into her arm. The machines beside her beeped softly, a steady rhythm that felt almost fragile. Adrian stepped closer, careful, as if any sudden movement might break the moment. For a while he just stood there, watching her, taking in the reality of everything. Then, slowly, he sat down beside the bed. I'm sorry, he said quietly. The words felt different now, not like an admission, like a weight. I should have listened, he continued. I should have trusted you. I should have protected you instead of walking away. Olivia didn't respond. She was still asleep. But Adrian kept talking anyway. Everything that happened after, that was on me, he said. And I can't undo it. I know that. His voice softened. But I can fix what comes next. He looked at her hand. Gently, he reached out, hesitating for just a moment before taking it in his. I'm not asking for forgiveness, he said. Not yet. I don't deserve it. A pause. I just want the chance to be there. For you. For our child. The words lingered. Quiet. Honest. Real. Olivia's fingers shifted slightly in his hand. A small movement, but enough to make him look up. Her eyes opened slowly. Confused at first. Then focused. On him. You're still here, she said softly. Adrian nodded. I am. Olivia studied him for a moment, as if trying to decide something. Then she looked away. You shouldn't be, she said. Adrian didn't let go of her hand. I'm not leaving, he replied. You always leave, she said. The words weren't angry, just tired. Adrian absorbed that. I won't this time, he said. Olivia didn't respond immediately. Her gaze drifted to the ceiling, her breathing slow, steady. You can't fix everything with money, she said after a moment. I know. You can't undo what happened. I know. She turned her head slightly, looking back at him. Then what can you do? She asked. Adrian didn't hesitate. Show you, he said. Not promise. Not explain. Show. Olivia held his gaze. Longer this time. Searching. Measuring. And for the first time since he had seen her again, there was something different in her eyes. Not trust. Not yet. But not complete rejection either. Something in between. A possibility. She closed her eyes again, her hand still in his. You can stay, she said quietly. It wasn't forgiveness. It wasn't acceptance. But it was something. And for Adrian, it was enough. Because for the first time in years, he wasn't being shut out. And as he sat there beside her, the steady rhythm of the machines filling the room, he made a silent promise. Not to win her back with words, not to force anything, but to earn it, step by step, no matter how long it took. Morning light filtered through the hospital blinds, soft and steady, painting quiet lines across the room. Adrian hadn't moved. He sat beside Olivia's bed, his hand loosely holding hers, his posture calm but unwavering. Sometime during the night, exhaustion had pulled him into brief, restless sleep, but he had woken the moment she shifted. Now she was awake again, fully awake this time, and watching him. You stayed, Olivia said softly. Adrian opened his eyes, meeting her gaze. I said I would. There was no hesitation in his voice, no uncertainty, just quiet truth. Olivia studied him for a moment, her expression unreadable. You don't have to, she said. You've already done enough. The words weren't kind, but they weren't cruel either. They were guarded. Adrian nodded slightly. I know, he replied. But I'm not here because I have to. Olivia didn't respond. Her hand rested gently over her stomach, instinctive, protective. The doctor said you need rest, Adrian added. Real rest, not just a few hours between shifts. A faint, almost ironic smile touched Olivia's lips. Rest doesn't pay rent, she said. Adrian leaned forward slightly. I've already taken care of that. Olivia's eyes snapped back to his. What do you mean? I spoke to your landlord this morning, Adrian said. Your rent is covered, for as long as you need. Olivia pulled her hand away from his. No, she said immediately. Adrian frowned. No? I didn't ask for that, she replied, her voice firm despite her exhaustion. I know. Then you shouldn't have done it. Adrian took a breath. I'm not trying to control anything, he said. I'm trying to make sure you're safe. I've been taking care of myself just fine, Olivia said. Adrian didn't argue, because technically, she had. But at what cost? This isn't about pride, he said quietly. It's about reality. Olivia looked at him, something flickering in her eyes. You don't get to decide what my reality is, she said. Adrian nodded slowly. You're right, he admitted. But I can help change it, if you let me. Silence settled between them again. Not tense, not explosive, just uncertain. Finally, Olivia looked away. I don't want to depend on you, she said. Adrian's voice softened. You're not depending on me, he replied. You're letting me take responsibility. Olivia let out a slow breath. That's not the same thing. Maybe not, Adrian said. But it's a start. Olivia didn't answer. But this time, she didn't refuse either. Hours passed. Doctors came and went. Tests were run. Conversations held in low voices. And through it all, Adrian stayed. Not hovering, not controlling, just present. By the afternoon, Olivia was moved to a quieter room. The tension of the previous night had eased, replaced by something calmer, more stable. For the first time, there was space to think, to feel, to consider what came next. You don't have to stay, Olivia said again later, her voice softer now. Adrian looked up from where he sat. I know, he said. Then why are you? He didn't hesitate. Because I want to be here when our child is born. The words landed gently, but their meaning was anything but small. Olivia's hand rested over her stomach again. Our child, she repeated. Adrian nodded. If you'll let me, he added. Olivia didn't answer immediately. Her eyes drifted to the window, watching the light shift across the glass. For years, she had carried everything alone. The pain, the responsibility, the quiet strength it took to survive. Letting someone in now felt unfamiliar, dangerous, but also necessary. He's not coming back, she said suddenly. Adrian frowned. Ethan, Olivia clarified. He disappeared after everything fell apart. Adrian's expression hardened. I'll find him, he said. Olivia shook her head. That's not what matters anymore. Adrian looked at her. Then what does? Olivia met his gaze. This, she said, her hand pressing gently against her stomach. This is what matters. Adrian followed her gaze, and for the first time, he truly understood. Not as a concept, not as a possibility, but as reality. This wasn't about the past. It was about the future. A future that didn't exist yet, but could, if they were willing to build it. Together, I want to be part of that, Adrian said quietly. Olivia studied him, long and carefully, looking for something. Sincerity, change, proof, and slowly, she nodded. Then start by being here, she said. I already am. Stay, she added. Not just today, not just because something went wrong. Adrian's voice didn't waver. I will. Olivia held his gaze for a moment longer. Then, finally, a small shift. Subtle, but real. She reached for his hand. Not fully, not completely, but enough. And Adrian didn't move. He didn't rush. He didn't push. He just let it happen. Because that was all she was ready to give. And this time, he wasn't going to take more than she offered. Outside, the city continued as it always did. Busy, unforgiving, unaware of the quiet moment unfolding inside that hospital room. A moment built not on grand gestures, but on something far more important: understanding, accountability, and the fragile beginning of trust. For Adrian Al-Farid and Olivia Bennett, nothing had been easy. Nothing had gone as planned. But maybe, just maybe, that didn't mean it was over. Maybe it meant it was finally beginning. Sometimes the truth hides behind silence, and the biggest mistakes come from not listening. Never judge someone based on what you see in a moment, because you might miss the full story. Real love isn't proven by words, but by actions, patience, and the courage to make things right. Don't forget to share where you're watching from, leave a comment, and subscribe for more powerful stories like this.